tension as the woman's accusations filled the air. Before he could respond, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb, its tires screeching slightly as it came to a stop. The vehicle's door opened and a woman stepped out, her presence commanding immediate attention. It was the city's mayor. Her heels clicked sharply against the pavement as she approached, her expression a mask of controlled fury. Sarah's confidence wavered, her mouth falling open as recognition dawned. The mayor stopped beside Jeremiah, placing a protective hand on his shoulder. Her voice was low but unyielding, slicing through the charged atmosphere. "The troublemaker you're reporting," she said, her eyes locked onto Sarah's, "is my son." The silence that followed was deafening, Sarah's face drained of color, her self-assured demeanor crumbling under the weight of her mistake. She stammered, trying to form a response, but the damage was done. The taller officer stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "Mayor, we were just responding to a call," he began. But the mayor raised a hand, cutting him off. "My son has every right to be here, just like anyone else," she said firmly. "This baseless harassment ends now." Jeremiah stood silently, his heart pounding, but a spark of relief flickered within him. His mother's unwavering support in the face of injustice was a powerful shield against the indignities he had endured. Sarah's gaze dropped to the ground, her earlier bravado replaced with evident regret. The officers exchanged glances, their posture softening as they realized the gravity of the situation. The mayor looked down at her son, her eyes softening. "Let's go home," she said quietly, guiding him toward the SUV. As they drove away, Jeremiah glanced back, his mind heavy with thoughts of the encounter. The park returned to its usual tranquility, but the moment left an indelible mark, a stark reminder of the biases that persist and the courage it takes to confront them. Jeremiah stood silently as his mother took in the scene, her sharp eyes missing nothing. The officers, previously confident, now appeared uncertain under the weight of her presence. Sarah fidgeted, her earlier righteousness dissolving into visible discomfort. "Officers," Mayor Angela Thompson began, her voice steady but laced with an unmistakable edge, "I'd like to know why my son is being questioned as if he's a suspect." The taller officer cleared his throat, struggling to maintain composure. "Ma'am, we received a report about suspicious activity," he said, gesturing vaguely towards Sarah. "So you're saying the company can imprison him here and work his way around our staff? So if you're saying that ADL candidates are unable to pass suspicious activity?" the mayor repeated, her tone cutting. "Is it just suspicious because my son happens to be black?" Her words hung heavy in the air, a quiet murmur rippling through the gathered crowd. The shorter officer shifted uncomfortably. "We were just following up on a complaint," he mumbled. Sarah opened her mouth as if to defend herself, but faltered under the weight of the mayor's glare. I thought he might be up to something," she stammered, her voice trembling. "Up to something?" Mayor Thompson's tone turned icy. "Did he approach you, speak to you, or was his mere presence enough for you to assume the worst?" Sarah looked down, her face flushed with embarrassment. The mayor took a step closer, her voice firm but controlled. "Let me be clear, my son has every right to be here, just like anyone else. Your assumptions, fueled by bias, could have put him in serious danger." The crowd, still recording and watching, seemed to hold its collective breath. One of the onlookers called out, "You tell her, Mayor," sparking a ripple of approval. Turning back to the officers, Mayor Thompson continued, I trust this incident will be documented accurately, and I expect my son to be treated with the same respect and dignity you'd afford anyone else in this park." "Yes, ma'am," the taller officer replied, his tone now subdued. The mayor turned to Jeremiah, her expression softening. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. "Yes, Mom," he replied, though the tension in his voice was evident. She placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of comfort and solidarity, before addressing the crowd. "This is a reminder to all of us that assumptions and prejudices have consequences. Let's do better for everyone." As she guided Jeremiah back toward the SUV, the gathered onlookers began to disperse. The incident had left its mark, a stark example of the challenges still faced and the strength required to stand against them. Mayor Thompson's gaze, her voice firm. "Apologies are a start, but actions speak louder. Think about the assumptions you made today and the impact they had." She turned back to the officers. "Moving forward, I expect every member of this community to be treated with respect, regardless of race, age, or appearance. Am I clear?" "Yes, ma'am," the taller officer replied, his voice subdued while the other nodded in agreement. Jeremiah felt the warmth of his mother's hand on his shoulder, steadying him as the tension began to dissipate. He stood taller, the weight of the moment lightened by her unwavering support. The mayor addressed the onlookers, her voice carrying strength and resolve. "This is not just about my son. It's about the kind of community we want to build, a community where no one has to justify their presence in a public space, where everyone belongs. Let today serve as a reminder that change starts with each of us." The crowd murmured in agreement, a few nodding in solidarity. As Mayor Thompson guided Jeremiah toward their SUV, the park seemed quieter, more reflective. The gravity of the moment lingered, leaving an indelible mark on everyone present. Entire community, starting with law enforcement and extending to public forums and schools, Mayor Thompson declared, her voice steady and resolute. "Change begins when we educate ourselves and challenge the assumptions that lead to moments like this." The crowd listened intently, the weight of the moment settling over them. Jeremiah stood by his mother's side, his earlier fear replaced with a sense of validation and hope. Sarah lowered her gaze, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry, I didn't think about how it would feel to be on the other side." Mayor Thompson regarded her with a measured expression. "Acknowledging the harm caused is the first step, but it's only the beginning. Real change requires commitment to doing better." The gathered onlookers began to nod, conversations sparking among small groups. People reflected aloud on their own behaviors and biases, the tension in the park giving way to a shared understanding that this moment could be a catalyst for progress. Jeremiah looked up at his mother, pride flickering in his eyes. "Thank you, Mom," he said softly, his voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside him. Mayor Thompson placed a hand on his shoulder, giving him a reassuring squeeze. Together they walked toward the SUV, leaving the park buzzing with discussions and a newfound determination among its visitors. The echoes of the mayor's words remained, a seed of change planted in the hearts of all who had witnessed the day's events. The implications of what they had seen and the uncomfortable truths it revealed. Social media lit up with videos of the incident, accompanied by a cascade of opinions. Some praised Mayor Thompson for her decisive stance, while others questioned the practicality of her proposed solutions. Jeremiah's story became a focal point in a broader conversation about bias and justice, Schools held assemblies to discuss racial profiling, and community centers organized forums to share experiences and foster understanding. The city's newspapers ran op-eds on the need for systemic change, and local radio shows featured heated debates about accountability and progress. At home, Jeremiah found himself at the center of attention. Friends reached out with words of support, while strangers sent letters commending his courage. Yet, amidst the overwhelming response, Jeremiah struggled to process the events. He had become a symbol of resilience, but he was still a 14-year-old boy trying to make sense of the world's complexities. Mayor Thompson, too, felt the weight of the moment. In the days following the park confrontation, she doubled down on her commitment to addressing racial bias. She met with police leadership to outline mandatory anti-bias training, emphasizing the need for transparency and community involvement. Public meetings were scheduled, giving residents a platform to voice their concerns and share their ideas. Not everyone embraced the changes without reservation. Skepticism lingered among some, who questioned whether training alone could dismantle deeply ingrained prejudices. Others expressed frustration, feeling that the measures didn't go far enough. Mayor Thompson listened, taking in the criticism while reaffirming her dedication to long-term solutions. For Jeremiah, the experience became a turning point. He channeled his emotions into action, joining a local youth advocacy group focused on fostering equality and inclusion. His voice, once silenced by fear, now carried with it a determination to make a difference. As weeks turned into months, the city began to show signs of transformation. Officers participated in workshops led by diversity experts, while community events highlighted stories of resilience and unity. The memory of that afternoon in Oakwood Park lingered as a reminder of what was at stake. For Mayor Thompson, the work was far from over. She knew that true change would take more than policies or promises. It required a shift in the collective mindset of her city. But as she watched her son speak confidently at a community forum, surrounded by people from all walks of life, she felt a glimmer of hope. Change was slow, messy, and often met with resistance, but it was possible, and in that possibility lay the strength to move forward. The incident at Oakwood Park forced the community to confront uncomfortable truths about bias, leading many to reevaluate interactions they had previously dismissed as harmless. Discussions began cropping up in schools, workplaces, and neighborhoods as people grappled with the complexities of prejudice. Local newspapers ran in-depth pieces exploring the roots of racial profiling, while community leaders organized town halls to address the issue directly. Jeremiah, still processing the weight of his experience, found solace and strength in an unexpected place: his school's debate club. As he shared his story with his peers, the room grew silent, their wide eyes reflecting a mix of empathy and shock. His classmates began to see his experience not as an isolated event, but as part of a larger, ongoing struggle against injustice. Jeremiah's courage inspired many, sparking candid conversations among students about their own assumptions and privileges. Meanwhile, Mayor Angela Thompson remained steadfast in her push for systemic change. She advanced her plans for comprehensive anti-bias training across the city's institutions, facing resistance from skeptics who questioned its effectiveness. Complacency is not an option, she repeated in interviews, city council meetings, and community forums. Every unjust interaction undermines the trust that holds our community together. Over time, small but meaningful changes began to take shape. Police officers participated in community outreach programs, engaging directly with residents in open dialogues to foster trust and understanding. Local businesses embraced inclusivity, displaying signs that emphasized diversity and welcoming all patrons. In Oakwood Park, a vibrant new mural was unveiled, celebrating the city's cultural richness and resilience. Civil rights leader Keon Harold visited the city, delivering a powerful speech that resonated with many. There are countless black men who have been falsely accused, their lives derailed by assumptions and prejudice, he said. Addressing incidents like this isn't just important, it's urgent. These moments are opportunities to confront systemic issues and take meaningful action. The park incident became a catalyst for broader discussions about race, justice, and community responsibility. For Jeremiah, it marked the beginning of a personal journey toward advocacy. Encouraged by his mother and peers, he joined a youth-led organization focused on promoting equity and inclusion. Through speeches, workshops, and social media campaigns, he shared his story, using it as a tool to inspire others to question biases and fight for fairness. Mayor Thompson's leadership during the aftermath garnered both praise and criticism. While many applauded her for taking a firm stance, others remained skeptical about the effectiveness of training programs alone. Still, she remained undeterred. "Change is never instantaneous," she said during a city council meeting, "but it begins with awareness, accountability, and a willingness to listen and learn. We owe it to ourselves and future generations to build a community where everyone feels safe and valued." The momentum from that fateful day didn't dissipate. Schools introduced curriculum changes to address implicit bias, and local organizations began hosting workshops on allyship and racial equity. The police department implemented monthly forums where officers and residents could discuss concerns and build mutual understanding. For Jeremiah, the memory of the confrontation at Oakwood Park remained vivid, but it also became a source of strength. Each time he stood before an audience to recount his experience, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. "I was scared that day," he often said, "but what happened to me has to lead to change." The incident's ripple effects extended far beyond the park. Families discussed it over dinner tables, activists used it as a rallying cry for reform, and city officials began exploring broader initiatives to address inequities. Mayor Thompson knew the work was far from over, but she also knew that the seeds of progress had been planted. In the weeks and months that followed, Oakwood Park became a symbol of both the challenges the city faced and the progress it aspired to achieve. The mural, standing tall and colorful against the backdrop of the park, bore a simple yet profound message. "Together we rise."